Welcome, Tone Vays, joining us from his safari in Dominican Republic. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's been really very, very busy time. Not only for the price of Bitcoin moving around, but also for me traveling.
Yeah, so beginners that are new to Bitcoin, they see the price going down. And a good question to start with is maybe, Tone, when do you think Bitcoin will go to zero?
Hopefully never. I honestly believe that it will be never. I am still a huge fan of Bitcoin. I have fell in love with Bitcoin as far and back in 2013. I have only become more optimistic about the future of Bitcoin. But a lot of people misunderstand. No matter how optimistic I am about the future of Bitcoin, I usually find that price. Uh, Not usually, but I have found price to be overvalued on numerous occasions. The biggest, of course, being the 2017 bubble that we're still recovering from. I also was very skeptical of the big run up in price of Bitcoin earlier this year in 2019. And I was very skeptical of that price going up. A lot of people were upset that I wasn't a huge bull in that market. And now we've been going down in price for 6 months. And the question is it over? Are we ready to start going up again? And I am still skeptical. I still think that the price will go below $6,000 early next year before an actual bull market can finally begin.
So what is the right mindset, the right approach if somebody thinks Bitcoin is a great investment or is interested in Bitcoin?
So the right mindset is to understand exactly why you're buying Bitcoin. If you're going to buy Bitcoin for the sole purposes of getting rich, you're going to find out real quick how broke you're going to be, because a lot of these speculative assets like Bitcoin, when you are ready to buy it, if you are new into the space, you are probably hearing all about it after the price has gone up significantly. And that's how the average person usually buys at the top and sells out of frustration at the bottom. If you have not been following Bitcoin for years and think you have a good idea of timing the market, if you're going to get into Bitcoin, you have to be willing to hold it at least 4 years, probably over 5 years, before you can really understand if it was worth the investment. So that's one of the biggest things that people need to understand about Bitcoin before they go into it.
It seems like a lot of people fall for scams. They don't want to listen. They make a lot of mistakes. Do you think it's just really like there's an education deficit, or what is the problem that people don't listen, don't want to listen, don't want to learn?
There's a huge education deficit, and it's a big challenge. I've spent 5 years in this space trying to educate people, trying to keep them out of losing their money in scams, and I feel like I failed. The bubble of 2017 was nothing but scams, and I don't think enough people have learned their lesson, and that's another reason why I think the price of crypto is gonna keep coming down. In 2019, we saw the Bitcoin dominance index. This is how much Bitcoin is worth versus all others. Rise from as low as 35% all the way to 70. And I feel this is going to go back to 90 and then 95 and then 98 and then 99. It will never make it back to 100%. But people are starting to learn their lesson. But there is a huge educational gap. People just keep comparing crypto to stocks, but it's not. They're not stocks. Bitcoin is a new asset class and potentially a currency for the world that no government controls. But almost everything else in crypto is like a stock, but they have no money, they have no product, they have no clients, and therefore the free market will eliminate all of these other cryptos and it will just be Bitcoin. So trying to educate that to people when all they see is dollar signs in front of them, if they just pick the right cryptocurrency, is very, very challenging.
You are someone that is traveling all around the world. You host many conferences in different countries in Malta, Now you're planning one in the Dominican Republic. You were in Bali, in Singapore, all over. What is your experience, your learning from hosting Bitcoin conferences? Like, what worked, what didn't work, and why do you do it?
I'm learning how challenging it is to organize an event. It is a lot of stress, it is a lot of work, and it's expensive. And not a lot of them are profitable unless you want to try to get a bunch of sponsors that could potentially scam your attendees. We are very selective when it comes to sponsors. There's only a dozen companies in the space that we would even allow to sponsor our conference. And a lot of those companies don't even sponsor events, so it becomes a real challenge. That's the biggest one. As far as content is concerned, I am very selective of my content. When I started public speaking, I learned something. I learned that the guy on stage is not necessarily an expert. In fact, I would say 90% of all speakers across all conferences around the world paid money to the conference to speak to the audience in order to sell the audience something. And most of the time, they are selling the audience something that the audience should not be buying. That is my biggest frustration with conferences. And to solve that problem, I started doing them myself. And we have Unconfiscatable in Las Vegas, which is a general Bitcoin conference. We have Understanding Bitcoin in Malta, which is more developer focused, where we bring in Bitcoin developers to educate the average user how to use Bitcoin features. And we have the Financial Summit, which takes place twice a year at very nice exclusive resorts. One was in Bali, the next one is in the Dominican Republic. They are more high-end, they are more expensive to attend, and they're more designed for the financial person. I wouldn't call them a Bitcoin event. They're an event to connect traders and hedge funds and educate people how to manage their own money and how to be better prepared to invest their money in the markets. That's everything I do is about education. 90% of it is free on YouTube, and the other 10% is these events.
Why should somebody attend? What's the kind of the main benefit? Is it to protect wealth, or to learn trading, or to learn about the features of Bitcoin?
Well, it's each one has different. The reason why I really wanted to do Understanding Bitcoin is because I wanted to know how to properly use the power features of Bitcoin. And basically, my goal for organizing these conferences was for me to learn something, because the other conferences weren't doing their job. I didn't want to do it. I felt like I had to. Unconfiscatable just teaches you all aspects of Bitcoin. We'll have a law panel. We'll have a developer panel. We'll have it's a true Bitcoin conference. It even says Bitcoin, not blockchain, in the title. And the financial summits are very different. They have multiple facets. They're designed for, it's not really designed for a beginner trader, though if a beginner trader is very smart and did a lot of homework, he'll be okay. It's designed more for the intermediate trader to take their trading to the next level, where he gets to meet and network with successful traders that have done it for years and years. It's a way for traders, young new traders that have profitable strategies, connecting them with hedge funds, and they can work together to automate and monetize those strategies. It's a way for hedge funds to find new trading talent. Also, if you have a mining operation, this is where you want to come and learn how to hedge those minor gains, because you know how to mine. You don't necessarily know how to use the futures markets. So it's really designed for that higher middle class to high net worth individual to be surrounded by other people similar to them in a trading week-long, very exclusive resort networking event.
You mentioned the middle class. Do you see Bitcoin adoption going on mainly in the middle class, or do you also see, like many people say, the unbanked, so in Latin America or in countries where there's a severe crisis or economic crisis, where do you see a Bitcoin adoption happening?
This may sound a little insensitive, but even from the start, even going back to 2013 when I joined, I wasn't on this crusade to bank the unbanked. I feel that the unbanked have a lot bigger issues that they need to resolve before getting involved in Bitcoin. The Bitcoin infrastructure is still not as easily available as the internet. And what you learn is in a lot of places where people are unbanked, they have internet problems. So how useful is Bitcoin going to be for them? I always focused on the middle class for initial stages of Bitcoin adoption to protect the upper level middle class from having their assets seized, having their assets confiscated, having government jurisdictions telling them what to do with their money, and governments devaluing their hard-earned money. To me, a person that I focused on is someone that spent 10 to 15 years working at their job. They saved a lot of money, you're getting ready to retire. You've saved a few $100,000 over the course of your life if you're in America or Canada or Europe. And let's say you're a Canadian. Over the last 10 years, you saved $100,000. Now, about 7 years ago, one Canadian dollar was equal to the one US dollar. Today, it's 30% less. So how good would it have been for that Canadian to hold their savings in something like Bitcoin if they didn't want to hold dollars? Or someone in Australia whose currency has devalued 30 to 40% versus the dollar within the last 5 years. And these are the people that have savings. These are the people at risk of losing their retirement money. And these are the people that could build the Bitcoin's infrastructure to make it easier to access Bitcoin or internet for the third world. So I've always focused on that middle class in order to help them protect their savings, to build products for the unbanked.
If you would be the Fed yourself, basically, how would you try and win time against Bitcoin?
Wow, that would be a challenge. I would be more disciplined in how much money is being printed. I would be more disciplined in bailing out the markets. I would. The other thing that I would try to do if I was the Fed is allow there to be more free market. Don't control the interest rate. Let the market decide what the interest rate should be. So I would try to, have less of this communist control of the economy, constantly trying to change things, and trust the free market more. Would also, the Fed isn't the biggest problem. The Fed is not the reason why Bitcoin is thriving. Sure, one aspect that Bitcoiners really like is the fact that Bitcoin can't be inflated. That's the part that the Fed can actually control and save. But the other two parts have nothing to do with the Fed. And those two parts are more interesting to me. The reason why one of my conferences is called Unconfiscatable is because Bitcoin is the first unconfiscatable asset of value a human has ever owned. And the Fed is not going to be the one that's going to confiscate that money if they don't like you. That's other agencies of the government. Same thing with transactions. Bitcoin is also censorship-resistant value transfer. The Fed doesn't stop you from sending your dollar somewhere else. That is organizations like FinCEN and the banking system that's supposed to do anti-money laundering laws and know your customer laws. That side of the government tells you who you can and can't send money to. So the Fed alone, and this is why Bitcoin is going to succeed, because even if the government tries to compete with one of those parts, they're not going to be able to compete with all three. And right now, they're not even close to competing with all three. The Fed and the Treasury print too much, the government censors too much, and you're always at risk of getting your assets frozen and confiscated. So I believe Bitcoin will do very, very well in the near future.
Yeah, great. So last question is, what will you do with your money or with your Bitcoins, with your Satoshis after hyper-Bitcoinization?
Probably buy the dip.
But which dip then?
Oh, there will always be a dip. Hyper-Bitcoinization will send Bitcoin to unreasonable levels. Maybe I will finally buy that Lambo, but you know what? Material things aren't that important to me. To be honest with you, if I did ever become super rich off of Bitcoin, the first thing that I would do is hire a developer. I will probably call my old boss from Wall Street, who was the smartest programmer I've ever met, and I will just say, whatever they're paying you, I will give you more money, and I want you to be a Bitcoin core developer. Go look for bugs, go help, go optimize the code. You're the smartest guy I know. You're a good developer. Help Bitcoin succeed. From that angle, I'm not going to tell you what to do. Just go and help these guys.
Awesome. Tone, has been a pleasure as always. Thank you so much. And I hope you find a good venue now in the Dominican Republic.
Thank you.